The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
Hey.
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
When he ran for the Senate the first time, he called me on the phone. He goes, well, boy, I think I might have screwed up. I go, what? He said, well, you know, I was talking to these students at U of A, and they said, how come you're the only politician that comes down here? They only go to the retirement places. He said, well, it's because you guys don't vote. Okay? Those other dudes vote like 100%, you know, so you want people to come down here, you need to vote like they vote out at Seizure World. I said, you didn't say that, did you? Because there's this big retirement community called Leisure World in the East Valley. And they weren't real happy with their new nickname out there. So John said, like he always does, he said, okay, I screwed up, let's go. We got to go out there. And so we went out, and I remember we drove in, and there was about a 90-year-old guy in a golf cart right there, and he was giving us the finger. And little did he know, we both said, that's great. We love that. And John was like, hey, good to see you. Good to see you, pal. Thank you, thank you. So he went in, he said, oh, sorry about that, and went to work, and guess what? I think he won that about 85-15 in that election, in that precinct.
That was a great funeral. It's such a good funeral. I'm having such a good time at the funeral. I'm wearing my cactus shirt in memoriam, is what I'm doing. I actually did pick this out for John McCain. It is an amazing funeral, and it's going to go on for many, many, many days through the Labor Day weekend. So let's celebrate Labor Day, right? Let's do that. Wages are flat, everybody. Wages are flat. Okay, all right. No, this is Labor Day weekend. We're gonna, I've been battling my own damn self about whether or not, to take a day, just one day, as a person who does labor, and we talked about it ahead of the show. August is like, it's dead. Is what it is, okay? It's like 4,000 degrees in Arizona. It's, like 105 here in Florida. It's 90 degrees in Manhattan. It's just the dead of summer is what it is. And so, unless tomorrow's the last day of the month. So instead of me haranguing you to reach deep, go deep, everybody. It's the end of the month. Bills have got to get paid here at the Randi Rhodes Show. The non-corporate Randi Rhodes Show, the listener-supported Randi Rhodes Show, contrary to the bots. I mean, this Twitter thing. I regret that I ever became involved in it. It's just such a bastion of hate and stuff. It's amazing, and there are bots out there. But anyway, so people are saying, oh, I don't know, Randi's broken. She's doing the establishment thing. She's corporate. I'm like, I'm corporate? Really? I'm corporate. So it's the first of the month, my corporate masters, because that would be you. We need to pay the bills. So what I decided to do was do a Labor Day show today to celebrate labor, because that's what Labor Day is. Labor Day is a celebration of the labor movement in this country, how trade unionists and the labor movements started to grow in the late 19th century. And Labor Day was promoted by the Central Labor Union, the Knights of Labor, which organized a parade in New York City. And Oregon, on the other side of our country, was the very first state to make it an official public holiday. And by the time it became a federal holiday in 1894, we had 30 states celebrating the Labor Day. So I'm going to take tomorrow off to celebrate the Labor Day. And, of course, Monday is a freebie. Everybody gets Monday off. So we're going to turn it into a long weekend here, which is why I'm saying go deep, everybody. Go deep. You've got to support the show. August has been like so completely I will say this. We did sell out of those sneakers really fast. Really stinking fast. We didn't have a whole lot of them, but those are gone. We have 30. I think I have about 25 hats left. I'll make another order if you want those, because those went kind of fast too. I think we did 100 of them, and we have like 20 left. And we do have. I did another order of T-shirts, so we have a fresh batch of T-shirts in all sizes available. So if you want something, from our store, please do go and buy something. Otherwise, just give. Damn it, just go donate, support the show, and do it. Because I got to say, I'm up against it. I am burning out, and I always know when, and I got to take a day. And when I told Brett and Scott, they were like, "We're down with you." And we're just fried. We're just a little bit fried, and not just the heat. So tomorrow we'll be off. We'll do a best of. But so I thought today will be the Labor Day show, and I got to tell you, labor in this country is not doing well with this Trump master, with this, Mr. Trump. It's not, so much is going wrong, and it's flying under the radar because Donald Trump does so much wrong every single day. He lies so hard every single day. He makes so many gaffes every single day. He goes out of his way to ratchet up racism, to ratchet up misinformation, disinformation. I just saw, just before I was going on the air, I saw a tweet from Lawrence O'Donnell. I had to tweet him back because he's like, "Hey, Andrew Gillum is not some clone of Bernie Sanders. He was a Hillary delegate." Yeah, he said that he was. He said he supported Hillary, and he said that it was surprising to him after that Bernie had called him up, and Bernie came down and rallied for him and held a couple of rallies for him, and he was really surprised because he was a Hillary supporter. But don't you get it? Bernie is a unifier. Bernie is bringing the Hillary part of the party and the Bernie part of the party together to be the party part of the party so that we can get not a centrist to run for governor in Florida. So I tweeted back at him. Yeah, he said that. Don't rain on my parade. Don't mess with Florida. Leave me alone. Why are people doing that? They're like dividing the party all over again. And they're supposed to be, well, they're limousine liberals is what it is. Corporate liberal. And that's, what made me think, oh, they're accusing me of working for corporate? Oh, how I laugh. But listen, I got to say that the Trump administration has done some really bizarrely terrible things to us. The thing that stuck out like crazy yesterday was they released the real death toll from Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, and it was formally revised. The number, it was revised from 64. He said 16 when he was in Puerto Rico, and he said, "Oh, see, it's not like a real hurricane like Katrina. It's not like a real hurricane." You remember that? Should I refresh everybody so we can actually have a conversation about this disgusting human being? I mean,
I hate to tell you, Puerto Rico, but you've thrown our budget a little out of whack because we've spent a lot of money on Puerto Rico, and that's fine. We've saved a lot of lives. If you look at the every death is a horror, but if you look at a real catastrophe like Katrina, and you look at the tremendous hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that died, you can be very proud of all of your people, all of our people working together. 16 versus literally thousands of people. You can be very proud. Everybody around this table and everybody watching can really be very proud of what's taken place in Puerto Rico.
oh my God. He literally said it wasn't like a real hurricane. Well, the number was revised from 64 to 2,975 souls. Now, I'm sure if Donald Trump, was aware, he would have brought more paper towels. Do you remember that? I mean, this was so freaking disgusting. The whole handling of this situation was just so vile and so beneath a president of the United States. And yet yesterday, when he was told about this number, 64 to 2,975. He said he thought he did a fantastic job.
I think we did a fantastic job in Puerto Rico. We're still helping Puerto Rico. The governor is an excellent guy.
Oh, God.
And he's very happy with the job we've done. We have put billions and billions of dollars into Puerto Rico, and it was a very tough one. Don't forget, their electric plant was dead before the hurricane. If you look back on your records, you'll see that plant was dead, it was shut, it was bankrupt, it was out of business. They owed tremendous amounts of money. They had it closed up, and then when the hurricane came, people said, what are we going to do about electricity? That wasn't really the hurricane, that was gone before the hurricane, but we've put a lot of money and a lot of effort into Puerto Rico. And I think most of the people in Puerto Rico really appreciate what we've done. You know, Texas healed quickly, and the people were incredible. Florida healed quickly, and everybody worked very hard. Puerto Rico was actually more difficult because of the fact it's an island. It's much harder to get things onto the island.
Oh,
with Texas,
my God!
You're land-based. With Florida, you're land-based. Puerto Rico is a very difficult situation. I only hope they don't get hit again, because they were hit by two right in a row, and really the likes of which we have never seen before. But the people of Puerto Rico are great people. They worked very hard. But Puerto Rico, I would say, was by far the most difficult of the group. And, you know, right now, FEMA and all of the people that work so hard there, they were very brave, and they have done some job. But Puerto Rico had a lot of difficulties before it got hit, and we're straightening out those difficulties even now.
Mayor Carmen Yulín Cruz was asked to comment about the fact that they had no electricity in Puerto Rico before the storms.
It's a lie. He just simply is lying through his teeth. We had issues of generation, but, you know, this is what he's doing. He's trying to appease his own mind and his soul, if he has one, about this 2,975 deaths by saying, you know what? It is a fault of the people of Puerto Rico. No, we had electricity before Maria came. Maybe he doesn't know that Irma came 15 days before that and really hit us because, you know, he thought he was being so bright by telling us that we are an island surrounded by water, lots and lots of water, ocean water. So what the president is doing is not only undignified, but it's unbecoming of the president of the United States. This is just like telling somebody that's gone through a fire that it's their fault, that they didn't run fast enough. No, it is your fault, Mr. President. You should shame on yourself and your administration. You led us here to die because you were more concerned about the political spin than about the human reality that we were dying. And now that number, 2,975, will follow him wherever he goes for the rest of his life.
For the rest of his... Not that he will feel it, okay? He feels nothing. He is dead inside. But he thinks he did a fantastic job. If he means a fantastic job of keeping a lid on the actual fatality numbers, then yes, I have to admit, very impressive. Very freaking impressive. You see, George Bush was pilloried over his non-response to Katrina, and yet nobody notices Trump's non-response to Puerto Rico because Donald Trump does so much else wrong. See, if George Bush was as smart as your Donald Trump, he would have insulted war heroes and started a trade war and ratcheted up the racism and denied citizens passports, which is now what he's doing. I mean, Puerto Rico, it was the most difficult of the three because he doesn't understand that ships are the trucks of the sea.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
All appropriate departments of our government, from Homeland Security to Defense, are engaged fully in the disaster and the response and recovery effort probably has never been seen for something like this. This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water.
There's your president. There he is in a 30-second nutshell. There is your president. The amount of disrespect and disregard that he has, and the lack of information about ships are the trucks of the sea, sir. Why don't we just put everything on a ship and send it there? Thank God Hawaii, they didn't, they got hit really bad. There was a lot of flooding there. But boy, oh boy, do not get into trouble if you live in any far-flung, a part of the United States of America like California, because Trump doesn't give a damn about you. Period. End of story. Okay? So it's just the sickest freaking thing I ever saw. And then yesterday, him sitting there patting him, I think we did great. I think we did really, really great. I think, I give us the 10 out of 10. He just makes crap up. It's just, it's unbelievable. So here you have, the number of people. Almost 3,000 people died in Puerto Rico. 3,000 people died. That's like a 9/11 on that little island. And the president thinks he did a great job. He just does. And, he was tweeting during that disaster. I don't know if you remember this, but he was tweeting during the entire thing to Carmen Yulín Cruz. He was telling her, we can't help you forever. Your people are lazy. Remember that? Calling Puerto Ricans lazy, tweeting out to her, we can't stay there forever.
Well, if I talked to a Republican source who's in touch with people here at the White House who said that essentially that tweet was posted by the president earlier this morning to go after the San Juan mayor, Carmen Yulín Cruz, who has been seen here outside the White House as a thorn in the side of the president in the last couple of days. The perception is here at the White House that she was back in the headlines criticizing the president. And so that tweet was sent out this morning basically to respond to her, to say that, listen, this aid to your island is not going to be going on forever. Obviously, that struck a lot of people as being very insensitive to the people of Puerto Rico. I talked to a Republican source who's actually in touch with the administration on relief efforts there. And I asked this source, Wolf, whether or not the feeling is that the president just doesn't like the people of Puerto Rico, has some sort of bias against the people of Puerto Rico. And this source said it's more serious than that. It really reflects, in the opinion of this source, that the president doesn't understand what his administration is doing, because in the feelings of this source, the administration is hard at work trying to get things going again in Puerto Rico. But, Wolf, when you go back to the tweets this morning, and even the president, when he made that down in Puerto Rico, you remember that video of him throwing the paper towels to the people in Puerto Rico. I talked to another Republican source who advises this White House on a routine basis, who said the optics of that were just terrible, and that the White House has to do something to get this image problem turned around.
So what does he do? He declares victory. That's what he does. He says, I did fantastic. I did so great. Only 3,000 dead people. It makes your skin crawl. It really, truly does. It makes your skin crawl. And now, here's another story. This is more of the hatred that the Trump administration has for American citizens who just happen to be a couple shades darker than Norwegians. Seriously. This is the Washington Post today. This is a bone-chilling story. The Trump administration is now denying passports to American citizens who happen to live across the border, who happen to live on the border, on our side of the border, but on the border. South Texas, American citizens. One guy actually served in the military. He's a Hispanic guy. He served in the military. He fought for this country, and he had a passport. And he was trying to get his passport renewed, and the State Department denied him a passport renewal, saying that they were questioning his birth certificate and the validity of his birth certificate, which was apparently good enough to get him into the military, right? He's now a corrections officer. He makes $13 an hour as a correction officer, and he has to hire attorneys because he needs to get his passport renewed. And the State Department is... And it turns out he's not the only one. All these lawyers are getting phone calls in the border, like Brownsville, Texas, and McAllen, Texas. They're all getting phone calls from people who are American citizens who are trying to either get passports or get their passports renewed, and they're being denied based on their birth certificate. The original birtherism is back, and now it's against Hispanic people in South Texas. It's unbelievable. The denials, the revocations are surging, these lawyers are saying, and they're becoming part of a broader interrogation into the citizenship of people who have lived, voted, and worked in the United States for their entire lives, people who were born here. The State Department said applicants who have birth certificates filed by a midwife or a different kind of birth attendant suspected of having engaged in fraudulent services, as well as applicants who have both a U.S. and foreign birth certificate, are now being asked to provide additional documentation to establish they were born in the United States. Their passport, first they came for Obama, and you didn't say anything, and now they're coming for you, American citizens. This is unbelievable. Let's be clear. The problem isn't that these people were born too close to the border. It's that they were born with a little more melanin. The wrong skin color. Nobody is hassling people who live close to the Canadian border. My friend Rebecca, she lives up in Grand Isle. Hi, Rebecca. Nobody's bothering her about her birth certificate. No, nobody is. And where do we deport these people who were born in America to? And how are the countries going to feel when they have to be taking in refugees from the United States? This is sick. I guess they go where your ancestors were from. So everybody go on Ancestry.com and find out where Donald Trump is going to be sending you. And then ask Ukraine or Norway, whether or not they're taking U.S. citizen refugees. Because I think the answer is no. Oh, my God. This story is just unbelievable. So here's the story of Juan. He's a former soldier. He got a letter from the State Department telling him the State Department was not convinced that he was a U.S. citizen. They requested a range of obscure documents. Check out what they wanted and think about whether or not you could provide this, because for me, the answer is not a chance. They wanted evidence of his mother's prenatal care. What? They wanted his baptismal certificate and rental agreements from when he was a baby. He actually managed to find some of these documents and sent them into the State Department, and then he got another denial. In a letter, the government said the information, quote, did not establish your birth in the United States. He said, I thought to myself, I'm going to have to seek legal help, and he earns $13 an hour as a prison guard, and he knows he's looking at thousands of dollars in legal fees. Then there was the case of a 35-year-old man in Texas with a U.S. passport. He was crossing back into Texas from Mexico with his son at the McAllen Hidalgo-Reynosa International Bridge that connects Reynosa to McAllen. He was with his son, and he was stopped, and he was interrogated, and they took away his passport. Customs and Border told him, admit you were born in Mexico. Admit you were born in Mexico. These are according to the filing that he did in federal court. He said, I wasn't born in Mexico. He refused to say I was born in Mexico. He wasn't born in Mexico. And he was sent to the Los Fresnos Detention Center. And they put him into deportation proceedings. He was born here. They finally released him, but they scheduled a deportation hearing for him next year in 2019. He's had a passport since 2008, and they revoked it. They just took it away. He's an American citizen. And the attorneys who were called by the Washington Post, that are representing some of they said, oh, that's just the tip of the iceberg. They said, we are seeing such a surge in people whose passports are being revoked. We're seeing a surge in American citizens being told their birth certificate is now in question. They don't believe their birth certificate. Oh, you wouldn't believe the things we're finding. Oh, the original birther is bad. But one lawyer said, I've probably had 20 people who have been sent to the detention center, U.S. citizens who were sent to detention. He said He represents dozens of U.S. citizens who were denied their passports or had their passports suddenly revoked. Among them are soldiers and Border Patrol agents themselves. He said ICE agents have been going to his clients' houses without any notice, and they're confiscating people's passports. They're confiscating passports. They said, the State Department says that even though it may deny someone a passport, that does not necessarily mean you will be deported. Just leaving you in legal limbo is what they're doing. And one government official said, the prospect that immigration agents, could take their passport is real, but, we'll follow up. We'll follow up on their case. And they say the Washington Post is reporting that the administration is taking aim at a broad group of American citizens, along the stretch of the border where Trump has promised to build his wall. Where are we building this wall? Outside of Austin? I mean, what the hell is going on? That they could take your passport. The State Department would not say how many passports it has taken or denied to people along the border because of concerns about fraudulent birth certificates. The government has also refused to provide a list of midwives who it considers to be suspicious. They're going after midwives. Who helped women give birth in this country because they couldn't afford hospital care. They're going after this one OBGYN. There was a doctor, an actual OBGYN who delivered, probably 15,000 babies in McAllen, Texas. He was like the primary OBGYN in McAllen, like 30 years ago. He was the best known gynecologist, and anybody who has his signature on their birth certificate is now being denied a passport. And it's unclear why the babies that are delivered by Dr. Trevino are being targeted. The State Department wouldn't say. They wouldn't comment on why they're targeting this OBGYN, the babies that he helped deliver. This is so sick. This is so sick. One woman who has been denied, named Betty, said she tried to get a passport to visit her grandfather because he was dying in Mexico. So she went to the passport office in Houston, and government officials denied her request and questioned whether she'd been born in the United States. She said, "You're getting questioned on something so fundamentally you." Now, let me tell you why this is happening. Because nothing happens without a giant plan. This is all about the Senate. What? Yep. This is about Beto O'Rourke closing in on Ted Cruz. Noticeably, Ted Cruz is silent on this. This is voter suppression, is what this is. This is where it gets scary. And this is according to the lawyers whose phones are ringing off the hook from American citizens who are being denied passports and identification and all this thing. Okay? The people who are able to afford the legal costs are suing the federal government over their denials. Okay? But, and eventually people who do sue like this, who bring suits like this, questioning their birth certificates, they prevail. But in the meantime, they're in legal limbo. And guess what's going to happen in just a few weeks? Right. An election in Texas where you have a Democrat who is getting very, very close to taking Ted Cruz's Senate seat. This is voter suppression. There is no question in the minds of the lawyers that this is being done to take away identification documents from American citizens who happen to be Hispanic, Latino, or, dark-skinned in Texas, so that they can't go to the ballot box. Listen, first they came for President Obama, and you said nothing. It's unbelievable how the Republicans have a solution for every voter they don't like. They have a solution. They have a plan for voter suppression. In North Carolina, the gerrymandering maps were just declared unconstitutional. Then they said, well, we're going to close all the black polling places because they're not handicap friendly. Right? That's what they were going to, and the guy who suggested that has been fired, but they were going to close in a predominantly black district 6 of the 9 polling places because they were so clever. They said, oh, well, the bathrooms there aren't handicap friendly, therefore it doesn't comport with the ADA, we can't have voting there. I mean, this was just, they can think of anything and everything to suppress voters, right? They draw gerrymandered maps, they will go through the court process. In the end, they will be told to redraw them, but hey, we got away with 5 elections, right? Now they're taking away ID from voters in Texas who obviously are living in a very democratic place that are excited to vote for a Democrat in the Senate, for the Senate race in Texas. You've got Georgia, who put up a black candidate, so of course they have to close polling. I mean, it's just, but they don't have a stinking clue that ships are the trucks of the sea, and you could ship stuff over to Puerto Rico so 3,000 people didn't have to die last year. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it's inexplicable. It's unbelievable. It's unworthy of this country. And the more, the more that you listen to people speak at John McCain's funeral, and the more that you understand that no matter what the outcome was, he at least tried on immigration reform.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Malcolm, I can't overstate how troubling I find this. History is littered with lots of examples, starting before World War II, actually going back hundreds of years, but World War II or Rwanda or the Balkans, where leaders said this. They said, if those people take power, there will be violence. They will do something to you. They will take your privileges away. That is the root of the weaponization of culture.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And this is the dictator's playbook. This is what happens when an elected leader decides that they are going to use the levers of power and the power of fear to split their nation and to actually pit one group against the other. I worked the Rwanda mission when Radio Mille Collines, the broadcast channel in Rwanda, exhorting people to seek out their neighbor, find the cockroaches. We have an intelligence term for this. It's called eliminationist rhetoric. And I'm not saying that it's going all the way there, but Donald Trump uses this. Now, you don't see it, but on an opposing cable channel around the country, there are TV commercials that are saying that, the left are these violent, brutal attackers and that hundreds of attacks are going on weekly. I'm shocked when I travel and see these TV commercials. This particular mindset is being spread. The president knows it. Nothing violent is going to happen after this election. The most violence we're going to have is violence against lattes the next morning for journalists that have to stay up all night.
Exactly. There is no violence. Like I said, Democrats are we're not exactly prone to violence, and we don't do anything quickly. So there you have it. I mean, the president is just so good at dividing. He's so good at breaking things. He's so good at cheating. The Republicans are great at cheating. They're just seriously good at it. They're good at voter suppression. They're good at cheating you out of your vote. They mass incarcerate people, and then they go, and hey, guess what? You can't vote now. The rest of your life, you have nothing to say about the country in which you live and toil. They're very, very good at selling racism. They're very good at selling, fantastical outcomes. If you give, $2.3 trillion to the wealthiest Americans, it's going to trickle down to you. Meanwhile, it didn't. We can now look back at this ridiculous tax cut that we had. I told you, today is the Labor Day show. Do you feel it, laborers? Do you feel it? Is it in your paycheck? Did you get your wage increase? No, you didn't. Quinnipiac actually did a poll and said that a majority of voters who they must suppress now, believe that their personal financial situation has remained the same or gotten worse in the past 2 years. The backbone of our country is the middle class. It is working people. okay? And when you tax labor at a higher rate than you tax the money that people make off of your labor, because without labor, there's no production. Without production, there's nothing to invest in. Hello? So the people that literally ride on your ass, who make money off of money, get taxed lower than the people who make the product they're investing in. The middle class is the backbone of this country, and everyone in the middle class thinks that there's stagnation, that nothing has happened for them. And they're right, because real hourly wages dropped 0.2% from last year, which is the worst result since 2012. Yeah. According to the Labor Department. And that costs of things like gasoline and electricity are going up faster than your wages have. So we're on the losing end of all of this. And, you know, for the low bargain basement price at $2.3 trillion, you got to subsidize the very wealthy. I mean, come on, people, wake the F up. This is unbelievable. And guess what he did today? He said, and you know, nobody will pay attention to it because, you know, frankly, John McCain is being laid to rest, you know, over a period of like 90 days or something. It's very long. See, I got to just tell you, as a Jew, you die, the next day you're in the ground, unless it's a Friday. Everybody brings a deli platter, you're done. Do you know? I mean, apparently in the Irish tradition, you know, in order to get to the deli plate, 9 days, 10 days. I don't, you know, I guess you get to drink. We don't drink. But here's what Trump did today. He's scrapping the pay raise for federal workers, saying the budget can't support it. Seriously. We must maintain efforts to put our nation on a fiscally sustainable course, and federal agency budgets cannot sustain such increases, the president wrote. There was supposed to be an across-the-board 2% pay increase for federal workers. It was supposed to take effect in January. There was also a yearly adjustment of paychecks based on the region of the country where somebody is posted, the locality pay increase, which was due to take effect. He said both of those increases no longer happening. No longer happening. But the GOP just added a $2.3 trillion tax cut that transferred 87% of it to the wealthiest Americans, and now they're pleading poverty. Oh my God, who didn't see this coming? This is so sick. This is so twisted. I mean, honest to God, when you look at, you know, 2,935 or 75 people can die on this president's watch, and nobody actually notices when you have a tax cut where all the goods went to all the proceeds on your you financed it. We're paying for it. You know, we have to service the interest on the debt that he ran up. And that's just the interest payment on the freaking debt that he ran up. And because interest rates are rising, service on the debt is more expensive for us. I mean, he promised taxes would, lower the taxes. You get bigger paycheck. It hasn't happened. It couldn't happen. We told you it wouldn't happen. And people were like cheering to give their money to the wealthiest Americans. They were literally there.
You understand that lower taxes mean bigger paychecks,
for who?
more jobs, and stronger growth. The first $12,000 for a single individual and the first $24,000 for a married couple will be tax-free. We are nearly doubling the zero bracket, and we substantially increase the child tax credit for working families, which so many people want, including my daughter, Ivanka. We will eliminate the penalty on bringing home, and we have to do that, future earnings. My Council of Economic Advisors estimates that this change, along with a lower business tax rate, would likely give the typical American household around a $4,000 pay raise.
No one got
We will
it.
lift our people from welfare to work, from dependence to independence, and from poverty to total beautiful prosperity.
Liar. All right, here it is. This is Bloomberg. President Donald Trump heads into a midterm referendum on his presidency showing no real progress on a core promise to raise the wages of America's forgotten men and women. Once the impact of inflation is included, ordinary Americans' hourly earnings are lower than they were 1 year ago. Real wages remain stagnant despite an expanding economy, record stock prices, soaring corporate profits, and a giant deficit-fueled stimulus from Trump's tax cuts that took effect January 1st. The Trump administration claimed its policies would boost wages with its tax overhaul, ultimately increasing the average pay to by $4,000. He even went as far as $6,000 in some speeches. That hasn't happened. And though Trump regularly boasts of the economy's performance, many Americans don't feel they're sharing in the gains. A risk for Republicans as they seek to defend their House and Senate majorities in November elections. A majority of voters believe their personal financial situation has remained the same or gotten worse over the past 2 years, said Tim Malloy, assistant director of the Quinnipiac University poll. Quote, when you look at the backbone of the country, the middle class, people think they're stagnant and not much has happened for them. Things might be marginally better nationwide, but it's a problem in the midterms for a lot of people. At least some people believe that promises were never fulfilled. That is why he doesn't talk about this ridiculous tax cut, because no one feels it. No one got it. Everybody's waiting. Wages didn't go up. Corporate profits are through the ceiling. I go to my Twitter feed at Randi Rhodes. You'll see I put a one chart there, just one chart. It's got the line for wages is blue and the line for corporate profits is red. And corporate profits went all the way up and to the right, up and to the right, up and to the right, and wages remained flat, like a dead, dying dog, just flatlined. Nothing happened. Nothing. In fact, hourly wages dropped 0.2% in July from a year earlier, their worst reading since 2012, according to the Labor Department. And amid faster price gains, they've grown at an average of 0.3%. The cost of things under Trump overall. Escalating tariff disputes risk eroding buying power even further by driving up prices even further, right? At the same time, many Americans received a boost in take-home pay from the tax cuts, though some ended up paying more in taxes. More. The average tax cut was about $42 a week, and your gas prices have increased more than that. Household incomes are over, this is what Trump said, household incomes are over $4,000 less today than they were 16 years ago. This is what he said here in Pensacola, Florida. He said that in September of 2016. You can go look at the Pensacola rally and you'll find it. He said, we'll get your salaries and your wages up, up, up. Workers are still waiting. 58% of us who work for a living. 58% of us who work for a living and are registered voters believe the Trump administration did not do anything to help the middle class. This poll was released August 14th. They asked Steve Mnuchin for a comment for this Bloomberg article. Well, they asked the White House. The White House didn't respond for a request for a comment. Here's what Mnuchin said. See if you can make sense out of it. I mean, over here, I'm no economist or anything like that. But here's what he said. It makes no sense to me. He said, wages are going up. I know that some people comment that the numbers don't show that. Excuse me? The numbers don't show that? But he says they are going up because he wants it to. He says wages are going up. I know that some people comment that the numbers don't show that. But let me just say, with new people coming into the workforce at lower wages, that's going to show on a gross level some different things. But wages are going up on same people. What does that mean, anybody? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Does that mean that his wife bought another, horrible Birkin bag? I mean, what does that mean? Before the tax bill passed, White House Council of Economic Advisors Chairman Ken Hassett said he expected reducing corporate taxes would spark an immediate jump in wage growth. Then he spoke to Fox News Business Network this month, and he said, higher wages, well, maybe they'll come with time. Trump has been telling voters that wages are already rising at historic rates. Economic data does not confirm any of it, doesn't show any of it. The polling on ordinary people, they don't agree that they've seen anything. They don't agree they feel any different. They feel like they're falling behind. But Trump is telling you in various speeches that wages are going up for the first time in 18 years. In another speech, he said first time in 19 years. In another speech, he said wages are going up for the first time in 20 years. In another speech, he said wages are going up for the first time in 21 years. And lastly, he said wages are going up for the first time in 22 years. Here's his quote. We have so many jobs now coming in. But they're raising wages. He said that last month in Iowa. He said that's the first time that happened in 19 years where wages are going up. Hourly average earnings rose 2.7% in July from a year earlier. That is the same pace as the 12-month period before Donald Trump's election. Wages have been rising an average of 2.2% since the recession ended in 2009. This man gave all your money away, gave nothing to you, is relying on the Obama economy. Inflation is kicking in now. The interest on the debt is more. Gas prices are more. The cost of living is going up. It's not keeping pace with your wages. You are falling behind. I am falling behind. And he is standing there lying to you about something you experience at the end of every month, having to choose which bills to freaking pay, or declaring victory because you got to pay them all and that left you enough for a slushie, a Slurpee. If you're very lucky, you got a Starbucks, and he's telling you everything's good, even though you know nothing's changed. And some people are actually believing him over their own damn experience in life, for real, at the end of the month, today, tomorrow.
Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Great news for Americans. 401k, retirement pension, and college savings accounts have gone through the roof. And just as I promised the American people from this podium 11 months ago, we enacted the biggest tax cuts and reforms in American history.
That's
Our
not true.
massive tax cuts provide tremendous relief for the middle class and small business to lower tax rates for hardworking Americans. We nearly doubled the standard deduction for everyone.
Claw it back. That's the answer to this. Claw it back. You know, according to the CBO's report, Congressional Budget Office, nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office that operates under Republican presidents and Democratic presidents and any presidents that we've ever had. They say that this tax cut cost the government, the American government, $2.3 trillion in lost revenue. $2.3 trillion in lost revenue. They, Trump said, if these things will pay for themselves. These things will pay for themselves. Yeah, it didn't. The Republicans who told you that they would pay for themselves, the Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, his president of the Council of Economic Advisors, if you cut that, you'll see an immediate increase in wages. Now he says, well, you have to wait for them. It'll happen sooner or later, one day, maybe soon. You know what I mean? Mnuchin said that they would ultimately reduce the national debt. These tax cuts would reduce the national debt. They would reduce the deficits in America. The CBO's latest report literally exposes this scam that I told you it was, that other people like me try to tell you in a very crowded, conservative media marketplace. We tried to tell you that this was a scam and that the tax bill would never pay for itself. In fact, the interest payments on this debt have added $582 billion to the cost. Claw it back. People want to know where their money went. This is a thing that people engage you, in various conversations on the social media, and they feel very strong in their pajamas. They feel very strong in mom's basement. They feel very strong in Russia. In St. Petersburg, the trolls do. Very strong, and they want to take you on, And you know what? All you got to do is show them a chart. Just show them one quick, easy-to-understand chart. Corporate profits through the roof, wages just flatlining. And yet, interest rates are going up, which means if you have an adjustable rate mortgage, if you have a credit card, you're paying more for everything, and you're paying more for what they took from us to give to the wealthy. You're paying more to subsidize the wealthy. People just think, this is socialism, but it's socialism in reverse. This is backwoods, back-ass, stupid, upside-down socialism, where ordinary people who work for a living and produce something subsidize the wealthiest Americans. It's supposed to be exactly the opposite. Because they profit so much by doing business in America, because they get so much protection in the tax code, they're supposed to pay their fair share and subsidize you. They're supposed to provide you with benefits. Otherwise, why have corporate America? Why have them? Why not just have mom and pops grinding out everything all the time the way it used to be? Why do we have them around? Because they agreed they would band together, they would respect labor, they would give you a 40-hour work week, and they would give you benefits. Okay, that's a reason for living. They don't do that anymore. Screw them. Screw them. You have the Koch brothers investing billions of dollars to rip health insurance away from you. Now that we have this unbelievable amount of debt and deficit, now he doesn't give public sector workers a raise, right? Now he starts to tell you you're going to have to give up your Medicare. You're going to have to give up Medicaid expansion. You're going to have to give up Social Security. You're going to have to give up your cost of living adjustments. You're going to have to give up all these basic things that keep people out of abject grinding poverty. Oh, well, we have to go after them because, there's a debt, there's a deficit. And you got these billionaires who still don't think they have enough. And they're literally putting out reports telling you, we can't have Medicare for all. But you know what happened with the Koch brothers? Idiot boys put out a very long report that some people talked about. And they were arguing that we couldn't afford to do Medicare anymore, and that not only can't we afford to do Medicare, but we can't do Medicare for all. That forget it. And they put out these astronomical numbers over 10 years, like what it would cost, $32 trillion over 10 years. But deep on page 18 in their stupid paper that's called Effects on National Health Expenditures and the Federal Budget. That is the name of their ridiculous report. But on page 18 of their own paper, they actually looked at Bernie Sanders' plan, and they said that his plan, national personal health care costs under Bernie Sanders' plan, would decrease by 2%, and total health expenditures would decrease by 4%. You know what that turns out to be? That is a savings for our government of $2 trillion. If we clawed back the $2 trillion that we gave away to the wealthiest people in this tax cut, and then we did Medicare for all, we would get another $2 trillion. Pretty soon it's real money savings. Pretty soon it really is giving us something that we all need and reducing the debt and the deficit. But that would mean they couldn't keep their $2.3 trillion tax cuts with us continually subsidizing them. That would mean if we won that we would claw that back, give ourselves some sort of a tax break, and save ourselves the premiums that we pay, the co-pays that we pay. We would negotiate down the cost of prescription drugs for Medicare for all, and we would actually get wealthier. We would actually get ahead in life. Oh, we can't have that. Because as long as everybody is dumbed down and everybody is listening to Donald Trump's racist rants about brown people and Puerto Rico can't be saved and Mexicans are rapists and Muslims have to be banned, as long as everybody's buying into this rhetoric, this crazy ass rhetoric, then he can get you to subsidize another $4 trillion worth of giveaways to insurance companies, worth of giveaways to the wealthiest Americans. But if you set all the rhetoric aside and you actually go through the numbers, well, guess what? The numbers don't support that anybody got a raise under this tax cut who works for a living. Guess what? The numbers say we're getting killed by health insurance premiums, and that one of the greatest burdens on the American family is getting sick. And the Koch brothers' own analysis clearly shows that Medicare for all would save our government $2 trillion and would actually increase the standard of living for every American middle-class family. A single-payer system means Americans would get more quality health care for more people at less cost. This is what Donald Trump promised you. And he knew to say it because the Koch brothers told him to say it. The National Nurses United Union co-president Gene Ross said, what even this corporate-funded study concedes is that we can actually guarantee health care for everyone in this country without devastating rising costs of premiums, deductibles, and co-pays at less than we spend as a nation today on health costs. They accidentally made the case for Medicare for all. And Bernie Sanders is right. Medicare for all would save the American people $2 trillion over 10 years in spending, government spending, but it would also put money in your pocket in a big, giant, meaningful way and take the burden off of you when you get sick to make co-pays, to pay deductibles, to pay your health care premiums. This health care for all is a moral issue, no doubt, but it's also cost effective. So, of course, the Republicans are against it. This is sick. This is twisted. And let me tell you something. This whole conversation, oh, it's socialism. It's socialism. I got news for you. You know what the biggest program of socialism is in this country? I know this because I was part of it, and I would do it again if they would have me, but they won't. And that's the U.S. military. Oh, yeah, the military is the most socialist of all the socialism programs that ever came down the pike. You know why? You know why? Because everybody gets protection regardless of your ability to pay. That is the most socialist thing ever. Not to mention law enforcement, everything from local police to the freaking FBI. All paid for with tax dollars. Everybody pays into the pool. Everybody gets, protection when they need it. Socialism. Public roads, bridges, tunnels. Socialism. Every great idea we ever had. Socialism. Public libraries. Socialism. You can check out books from conservative authors all freaking day long telling you how horrible socialism is at the library where you can read books for free for the rest of your life. Ever had a situation where you had to call the police? Then you've used taxpayer-funded socialism. Did you ever get a Pell Grant? Socialism. You ever look at the landfill? Socialism. Garbage collection? Socialism. CIA. Congressional health care. Oh, yeah, you pay for Congress to have health insurance, but you don't want it for yourself? How stupid do you have to be? Social Security, museums, public schools. Oh, don't talk about public schools. And every subsidy you ever saw go to a corporation is your tax dollars. Every single subsidy. We're paying three, almost $4 at the pump. They get billions in taxpayer subsidies. The VA.
Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
This is a bill that would provide over $200 billion in tax breaks to the top 2%. This is a bill that would provide hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks for the drug companies and the insurance companies. Last information I received, pharmaceutical industry, the major 5 drug companies made over $50 billion in profit. But this legislation would throw Americans off of health insurance to give the drug companies even more profit. This legislation, the House bill, and I think similarly the bill being worked on behind closed doors, is not only opposed by the AARP, the largest senior group in America, it is opposed by the American Cancer Society, by the American Heart Association, by the American Lung Association, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, the March of Dimes, the National MS Society, the American Medical Association, because the doctors know what a disaster this will be for health care for millions of Americans, the American Nurses Association, and the American Hospital Association. So you got all of these groups who are the pillars of health care in America saying, no, this is a disastrous bill, and yet we have the Republican leadership and a dozen or so members working behind closed doors.
He's always been right on health care, okay? It's probably the most important issue for Bernie is Medicare for all health care, obviously, because people are going broke just because they get sick. People are going broke because their kid gets sick. That is a ridiculous thing in America, considering we had a labor movement in this country. And the labor movement that we had was at its height, believe it or not, back in the 40s. Yeah, in the 40s. 35% of America was in a union in 1947. And the Republicans hated it. Hated it. Because the middle class puts up a fight. the middle class, when they're engaged in their own organizations, have a seat at the table. And the corporate masters don't like it. They would much rather pass legislation with the corporate masters at the table, and you just sit there and don't say much. You don't say anything. You be happy for the little crumbs that fall off of our table. You just be happy with that. And so they started breaking up unions. They started passing things like the Taft-Hartley Act. Now we have the Janus decision. Over and over and over again, they go after organized labor over and over and over again. And then they slap a label on you that sounds like communism, or sounds like Stalinism, or sounds like, Marxism. And they tell you, the label that you deserve is this, and we don't want to hear anything you have to say because that is un-American. Well, you tell me, what is un-American about fire? A fire department responding to your fire. What is un-American about a police station responding to your call when you call them? What is un-American about the U.S. military? Well, you can call that socialism if you want to, but it isn't. It isn't. It's democratic socialism, and that is a whole different thing. Democratic socialism doesn't wipe out capitalism. It doesn't take control of the means of production. It simply says you pay in, you get something for it. You get something for your dollar. It's like I'm asking people to, contribute to the show today. But I also want you to get something for what you give. So buy a T-shirt. That way I get something, you get something. Or buy a hat. That way you get something, I get something. That is small business. That is democratic socialism. I would prefer that you just give and don't want anything back, that you be a giver and not a taker, because I give and give and give and you take and take and take. But, it's up to you. But I'm just saying, when we had a Republican government run us into the ground in the 30s, I mean, literally just obliterate our economy as they did in 2008. They will do it over and 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 over. Because without labor at the table, all you have is corporations grabbing as much as they can, as fast as they can, before anybody wakes up and says, whoa, wait a minute. These corporate and business subsidies that we're fronting, this is socialism, but it's backwards. It's completely ass backwards. We're giving, we're paying, and they're taking. We're subsidizing them. That is so. What do businesses do to earn their subsidies? Nothing. They do absolutely nothing. It's like reverse socialism. And people just go along with it. Well, if they get richer, I never knew a poor man who created a job. Well, then you don't know me. Because I was a poor man creating jobs. Still am. Don't you dare pee on my American dream because somebody put it on a bumper sticker. That's just ridiculous. You have people coming here with $6 in their pocket and ending up being the greatest innovators in the history of the universe. Don't tell me a poor person never created a job. That's just stupid. That's just ignorant. By the way, Trump hates Southerners. He said that he doesn't like Jeff Sessions because he hates his Southern accent. He sounds like he's got marbles in his mouth. Just so you know, Southern people. But listen, FDR pulled us out of the Great Depression. How did he do it? Okay. In the first 100 days, you got to realize FDR had a Democratic Congress. He had an unbelievable, healthy Democratic majority in Congress when he became the president. And in his first 100 days, which is where we get this love of the first 100 days from, it's because you had a president named Franklin Delano Roosevelt who had a healthy Democratic majority to work with in Congress. And in his first 100 days in office, he passed the following. Get ready for it, people. The Emergency Banking Act. 3 days after FDR took office, he closed all the banks. And then on March 9th, he was able to push through a bill through Congress to reopen the banks under very close government supervision. It took 8 hours for this bill to go through. Can you believe that? 8 hours. It authorized the Treasury to print more money too. Then he did the Civilian Conservation Corps. That created 1,300 camps around the country to give young men new jobs, conserving natural resources. By 1941, the Civilian Conservation Corps employed 2.5 million men. They planted more than 17 million trees in this country, and they made improvements in every state, every national park. He passed the Federal Emergency Relief Act. $500 million worth of aid started flowing to state and local governments to help the people locally. The Civic Works Administration, 4 million jobs building infrastructure, roads, airports, schools, sewer systems, all kinds of civic projects locally. People went to work. The Agricultural Adjustment Act, which was a subsidy. This is socialism. This is socialism. It paid farmers not to produce so much. It paid farmers to not to produce so much food. It bailed out the farmers a little bit, and it allowed the farm prices to go up because supply and demand being what it is, less supply, more demand, prices go up. Or, right. Homeowners Loan Act. It provided funds so homeowners wouldn't lose their homes in mortgage foreclosures. Republicans, crashed the economy in 2008. I don't recall anything like the Homeowners Loan Act. Do you? This is his first 100 days. Did the Tennessee Valley Authority Act. That was one of the most innovative of the New Deal programs. That was an independent public agency that oversaw the development of hydropower in dams and other projects in the Tennessee River Valley. It was 40,000 square miles in 7 different states. They built 16 dams. They took over 5 more and provided electric power to 40,000 families that previously did not have electricity. See, Donald Trump cannot figure out how to do it for a small island like Puerto Rico because, it's surrounded by water, lots of water and more water. It's surrounded by an ocean. But somehow FDR figured out how to give electricity in 7 states to people in a depression who didn't have any and create jobs doing it. They also provided flood control and fertilizer and better river navigation and reforestation of vast areas. Then we had the Truth and Securities Act, which required any new offerings of stocks, any new offerings of bonds had to be registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Brokers who were selling these had to fully disclose all their background information. Then we had the granddaddy of them all, the Glass-Steagall Banking Act. Hey, savings and loans, get the hell out of the investment business. You cannot use ordinary Americans' bank deposits to bet on stocks. That is a bad deal. That is why they lost their shirts. That is why working people got hurt. No more. Also, it created federal guarantees. Your FDIC, right? $250,000 of your money in your bank account is, God forbid, it crashes. You get that. If you have $250 in there, you're going to get $250 out. Don't put $251 because you won't get the dollar. But that is the FDIC. Then he did the National Industrial Recovery Act. This one did not fly. If you want to know if, anything is a bridge too far, the National Industrial Recovery Act was a bridge too far for the Supreme Court. They struck this down. Here's what this was. Industries needed to cooperate in setting maximum hours, minimum wage, and price controls through something called the National Recovery Administration. The Supreme Court said, no, it gives too much power to a non-government administrator, too much to the private sector. Then we have the Works Project Administration. That was cleaning up, slums and providing even more electricity to even more far-flung rural areas. These are the arts efforts, painting murals on the walls of public buildings, staging, creating community theaters and putting on plays for local audiences that only paid whatever they could afford to see the play. And then Social Security, unemployment insurance, retirement pensions paid by your employer. 1938, the Fair Labor Standard Act, that passed the Supreme Court's muster, and that created a national minimum wage and a maximum work week of 44 hours. By the time the election rolled around in 1936, unemployment dropped. Average weekly earnings increased. And despite the Republicans calling him a socialist and saying America had become a socialist state, FDR was easily reelected. Meanwhile, over in Germany, they got Hitler. Same set of facts, global depression. They got Hitler. We got FDR. They called him a socialist. We got electricity. We got Social Security. We got FDIC insurance. We got the Glass-Steagall Act. We got housing loan protection. Stop slapping names on things you don't understand. The VA is socialism. A public park is socialism. Medicare, sewer systems, even the IRS, the Hoover Dam, the GI Bill, the bird flu vaccine, school lunch, the Pentagon, Medicaid, the FDA, the swine flu vaccine, beaches, public freaking beaches, unemployment insurance, buses, disability, socialism, socialism, socialism.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Today, we say the function of a rational healthcare system is to provide quality care to all in a cost-effective way, and not to continue a system which allows insurance companies and drug companies to make hundreds of billions of dollars in profits each year, and to make healthcare industry CEOs extremely wealthy. The strengths of a Medicare for All program are not only its universality and its cost-effectiveness, it also ends the complexity of a system which adds enormous stress at a time when people need it the least. While, depending on your income, your taxes may go up to pay for this publicly funded program, that expense will be more than offset by the money you are saving by the elimination of private insurance costs. And today, we tell the drug companies that the American people are sick and tired of the greed of the pharmaceutical industry. We are no longer going to get ripped off and pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs under Medicare for All. We're going to negotiate lower drug prices for the government and for every single American.
I mean, that's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't we use the awesome power of Medicare that exists currently for seniors and people who are disabled, etc., right? Why wouldn't we use the awesome power of a group of people like that to negotiate with Big Pharma the price of the prescription drugs for that program? We don't. The Republicans literally wrote it into the law that the government of the United States cannot negotiate the cost of prescription drugs. Just that simple little factoid ought to freak you out when you support Republicans. They are literally setting up a sting operation against you and your pocket. You and your wallet. You and your wages. They can't wait to steal them from you. It's so unbelievable. And what do they do with it? When they steal that money from you, they redistribute it to their donors. They redistribute it to the wealthy. They actually redistribute it to the people who are writing the laws that punish you for working. It's so sick. It's so twisted. And it's ass-backwards socialism. It's socialism for the uber wealthy. And nothing for you or crumbs. Crumbs, baby. You got a racist friend out there? Tell him that his beloved monuments, his beloved Confederate monuments, are all brought to you and maintained with your tax dollars. With it, you want your monuments, you got to pay. Tony in Lantana.
In Atlanta. I don't know.
Oh, Atlanta. Oh, Lantana's where, Lantana's like the next town up from me, where I am.
Oh,
yeah, that's right. I thought you were local.
Okay. My radio goddess, you are on fire today.
I told you, it's the big Labor Day show.
Oh, but you do this every day, though, so you know.
Oh, well, I'm burnt out. I got to take a day. I'm taking tomorrow.
Oh, I understand. So I'm calling to give you my praise before I can't get a chance to talk to you for a couple of days.
Okay.
Now, do me a favor.
Sure.
You do best of shows. I would love if you take if you do a show or just splice together a bunch of shows where you do what you did today. You explain socialism today better than I have ever. I mean, I've been to college, I've done some things. But you explain socialism today better than my college professors.
Really? So see, college professors neglect to tell people that things like, safe food and clean water actually is socialism. They forget to tell you that we all pay tax dollars and we're supposed to get in return clean, lead-free water, you see.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Republicans don't spend the money on the clean water, and we end up with algae blooms all over freaking Florida because corporations are at the table and they're saying redirect our spill off into the neighborhood. We don't just redirect in there. We don't give a damn about them. And the politicians who take the money do it, and we don't end up with clean water.
Right.
So we're getting ripped off because there's reverse socialism in this country. Corporations, they donate and they get everything for them, and we pay taxes, and then we and then we give to them even more in tax breaks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's uber socialism, but in reverse.
Yeah, but the way that our system is set up, it's like we keep giving and giving and giving. It's like a guy going to a strip club expecting to tip the stripper into going home with him. That ain't never gonna happen. She's gonna go home alone, and you're gonna go home with rabbit ears. No matter how much you keep giving,
she doesn't trickle down. Well, unless you're Trump. Yeah, Trump gets a trickle down from the dancer. He does. He gets it. But you see, that's what it was saying, that the billionaires get the trickle down. Nobody else does. And then they tell you to look down, even though they're peeing on you from above.
Exactly.
Yeah, everybody's told, look down at this guy, look down at that guy. This one. Oh, by the way, I got to get this story out. Thank you for the call. I got to get this story out before we call it a weekend here, because this is sick. Apparently, it just came out. Bank of America is freezing bank accounts of U.S. citizens. Oh my God! So they're denying passport renewals to U.S. citizens in southern Texas because they're trying to suppress the Democratic vote of U.S. citizens who have served in the military, who have lived here all their lives, who were born here, but they tend to vote Democratic and they're brown. So that's happening. But then this story just came out. This is from the Sacramento Bee. Everybody, I will tweet this out after the show. But you have the Bank of America not recognizing valid ID presented to them from people who are here legally. People who are here legally. Let's see. According to the Sacramento Bee, let's see. Bank of America has been accused of freezing or threatening to freeze customers' accounts after asking about their legal status in the U.S. Okay, this is a follow-up on a Washington Post story from last month. In July, the Washington Post reported that multiple customers had been locked out of their accounts after Bank of America questioned whether the account holders were U.S. citizens or dual citizens. According to the Washington Post, a guy in Kansas, his name is Josh Collins. He's from Kansas. His name is Josh. He got an unusual-looking letter purportedly from the Bank of America, asking about his citizenship status, and he said he thought that the mail was spam, so he ignored it. And they froze his account a few weeks later. And so he called the newspaper and he reported it to his local newspaper, and they reported it, and his local news station did. And he and his wife got messages from other people who said, oh my God, we've been locked out of our accounts too. And this has been going on for weeks. Guy in Tennessee, his name's David Lewis. He said he got the same suspicious looking letter as Josh Collins in Kansas. So he gave an interview to the Miami Herald, and he said that he has had an account with Bank of America for 30 years, and they sent him a letter, and they inquired about his citizenship. They asked about his income. They asked about his Social Security number. He said he called Bank of America, and he was told his account would be frozen if he didn't fill out these forms. The phone conversation pissed him off so bad he canceled his account. He said, one would think a national bank would be careful about looking stupid after Wells Fargo. He said after Wells Fargo was accused of creating millions of unauthorized credit card accounts. Remember that? They were opening up credit cards in Wells Fargo's customers' names, things they didn't even request. Okay, and so I just want you to know, proof of citizenship is not required to open up a bank account in the United States. That is the message from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, the federal agency that supervises branch banking. You do not have to show proof of being a U.S. citizen. So now Bank of America, their spokesperson, Carla Molina, said she can't comment on the specific cases. But they're literally seizing bank accounts. They're literally freezing bank accounts because they want you to prove you're an American citizen. And these people have lived here all their lives. They've had bank accounts with 30. Nothing is going to protect you. They said fear is gripping the communities. It's like walking into a grocery store to buy milk and being asked for your citizenship at checkout. Banking is one of the core aspects of daily life in this country. To be faced with this question in order to do banking seems as un-American as you can get. People are saying their bank accounts were frozen to the point where they couldn't pay their rent this month. They couldn't, make their insurance payment. They couldn't, do. Oh, my God. It's happening, baby. It's happening here. Organize. That is what Labor Day is about. It's about working people who organized themselves into a group, a block, a voting block of people who could not be trifled with. You screwed with the working people of this country at your own peril. Only 6% of Americans are in a union today. Did you see that debate last night? That was pretty freaking good. I tell you, Cynthia Nixon kicked Andy Cuomo's ass all over the place. She was arguing for unions in New York, which have been decimated, okay? And she was saying that people, see, in New York, you can't strike. Now, when I was growing up, you could strike. When I was growing up, I remember a garbage strike. When I was growing up, I remember a teacher's strike. Schools were shut down, and teachers got pay raises. Striking was the last thing that anybody would do, simply because if you lose the public, if you lose public opinion, your strike serves no purpose. But you look at all the strikes, the teacher strikes that happen in Arizona. That's how you have, this governor, I forget, gubernatorial candidate. I hate that word. But this is how you have a gubernatorial candidate who is an educator in Arizona. I think his name is David Garcia. So you have him because teachers went on strike in Arizona. Teachers went on strike all across this country. Teachers went on strike not just for themselves, but for their schools because they want an investment in their schools. Some kids don't have desks, okay? In America, kids do not have desks. You have shows on MSNBC where they're, donate a desk to, this country and that. We don't have desks here. I never could figure that one out. But Cuomo was against giving union members the right to strike. He says it would be mayhem. Can't have it.
To allow the public sector unions to strike, teachers could go on strike, there would be no school, children wouldn't be educated, and everybody started by saying education is so important, right? Sanitation could go on strike, which we've had in the past, which is even a health concern for the city. The subway, which we've talked about, which is so important, that could go on strike, and then there would be no subway, and it would cripple the city. Even the public unions that she suggested have the right to strike actually don't want the right to strike.
Because the only way
Mayor
now
de
they can get
Blasio,
good contracts is from
who she
cozying
has
up to you.
contributed money to, even he disagrees with her. So it would clearly be mayhem.
Yeah, the unions are so afraid, the public sector unions, 11% of Americans who belong to, who belong to a union, belong to a public sector union. This is a Janus decision. The Janus decision said, oh, you could work in a union shop. You don't have to pay union dues, and you should get the benefit of the union wages. You should get the benefit of the union, work week and all the other benefits that come with it. But you don't have to pay in. This is another effort to destroy unions. So last night, Cynthia Nixon was saying, well, of course they don't want to strike. Nobody wants to strike. They do it as a last freaking resort. But to take away their right to strike is to say they have absolutely no leverage. So his answer was, oh, well, public sector unions, they don't want to strike. And she points out, yeah, that's because the only way they get their public contract is by cozying up to you, Mr. Governor. This is the only way that union members get contracts is by kissing Donald Trump's ass if they're public sector unions. It's all ass backwards. Everything is ass backwards these days. But I remember growing up when there was garbage strikes, and there was one year we had a mayor of New York City named Mayor Lindsay. Okay. And, snow removal, socialism, snow removal is socialism because they come with the plows and the salt and all that, and they plow your street when it snows. That's called socialism. Whether you have the ability to pay or not, your street will be cleared because it's in the public interest to have streets you can navigate. Freedom of movement and all being important too. Going to work. Well, one year, the sanitation workers who do the plowing went on strike. And Mayor Lindsay was kicked out of office. And he was a dirty guy anyway. But they got their raise. Martin Luther King, what did he organize when he went to Memphis? Sanitation workers. You see, and the more they chip away at the rights of people to strike or the rights of people to organize, the smaller and smaller their voice becomes. The reason why unions were part of the civil rights movement, the reason why unions were part of the 40-hour work week movement, the end of child labor, is because they were organized and they had a voice, and a politician would ignore them at their peril. Now it's the other way around. Unions got to kiss the politician's ass or they get ignored. That is exactly backwards. Smarten up, wake up, become a voting bloc that politicians cannot take for granted without some price to pay. And that voting bloc cannot be a bloc based on race or party affiliation or where you live in the country, rural, urban. It has to be everybody that works for a living who wakes up and says this whole system has been turned on its head, and what we have here today is socialism that is ass backwards. We're subsidizing the wealthy. That crap has gotta end. Enjoy your Labor Day, and do me a favor. Look up the labor movement. See what it did for all of us throughout the years. And look up FDR, for God's sake. Have a great one. Thank you. Bye, Stinking Podcast.